Hi everyone, I hope you all had a great weekend. Let's start this week's video with a reminder about what's on our radar this week. First, remember that there's no discussion this week, so take a break. You earned it. You have a Module 5 exam due at the end of the week, and you also have critical task number 2 due at the end of this week. For critical task number 2, you're going to be doing one of my favorite activities. You're going to be finding an argument in the wild and analyzing it. The module lists a couple of places that you can reliably use to find a good editorial for this assignment. If there's something you want to use and you're not sure whether it counts as an editorial, just ask me. So a really brief recap of the first part of Chapter 6. Remember, we defined an argument and learned that an argument always contains at least two propositions, a premise and a conclusion. The conclusion is supported by the premise or premises if there are multiple. We looked at some examples of propositions. Remember, all we mean when we say proposition is a statement that expresses a complete thought. These can be false, true, or what I like to call fuzzy, as shown in some of the examples here. We looked at the difference between simple and compound propositions, and then we took a closer look at premises and conclusions. I want to stress one really important thing that we learned, which is the following statement from page 173 in your text. Good premises are based on fact and experience, not opinion and assumptions. The more credible the premises are, the better the argument is likely to be. Finally, we looked at how to identify arguments. I walked you through an example, and this will be really important for critical task number 2, so make sure you have this down pat. Next, I want to look at the image that you analyzed for discussion 4.1. Here's the image. Now, your assignment was to identify the premises and conclusion of the argument that is being made in this image. I saw a lot of really excellent responses on the discussion board. I think it's a really great idea to pull the conclusion out first. Luckily, I think it was pretty easy to figure out in this case. The conclusion is we should adopt more realistic marijuana laws. The premises were a little tougher. Part of being able to analyze an argument is being able to eliminate information that doesn't support the conclusion or add to it at all. The fact that 1 in 3 adult Americans have tried marijuana, for example, doesn't directly bear on the conclusion. What's really relevant here are the following two propositions. Many users of marijuana are nonviolent, otherwise law-abiding citizens, and prosecuting and jailing Americans for possession of marijuana wastes valuable resources, which are better spent keeping violent offenders off the streets. If we go back and look at these types of premises, both of these look like descriptive premises to me. This week we're going to look at two things, evaluating arguments and constructing arguments. There are 5 criteria we look for when we evaluate an argument. Clarity, credibility, relevance, completeness, and soundness. I can't stress enough how important these criteria are. We're going to keep coming back to them, so it's definitely a good idea to have a solid grasp on them. Finally, we're going to look at constructing an argument. Your text lists the following steps, which I think are pretty good. I don't think this necessarily has to be the be-all and end-all of constructing an argument, however. For example, I don't think it's unrealistic to establish your conclusion first, so let me walk you through an alternative way of constructing an argument. Let's take eating meat as an example. I'll establish my conclusion first, which is that we should drastically cut back on our consumption of animal products. Why? I need to find evidence to support this claim. I'll start by going to Farm Sanctuary, which I know is a reputable organization, to find some facts that support my claim. I find out from Farm Sanctuary that, with over 9 billion animals raised and slaughtered for human consumption each year in the United States alone, modern animal agriculture puts an incredible strain on natural resources like land, water, and fossil fuel. Bam! There's my first premise. So I've decided that I'm going to argue that we should reduce our consumption of meat based on environmental reasons. I found a fact sheet from the Humane Society of the United States that tells me that factory farming has a major impact on climate change. The Humane Society presents evidence that the meat, egg, and dairy industries contribute significantly to greenhouse gas emissions. Okay. Now I need a premise about greenhouse gases contributing to climate change. Here's one from the same publication. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, has found that the overaccumulation of greenhouse gases has caused anthropogenic global warming. Now, go back and take a look at my first premise. Do I even need it? Probably not. We can eliminate this one then. Now we organize. And here's the argument I've constructed. Hopefully that was a helpful exercise. I'm looking forward to seeing your responses to critical task number 2 later this week.